Hi, I'm John. Welcome back to Underhill Creations and Casting Solutions. So today I'm going to share with you one of my processes on making a specific pen. In the past video I had shot for Lacquer Shot, the new product from Glue Boost. I had sprayed it over a hand-painted acrylic pen. I had some people reach out and say they'd really like to see how I made that pen, so I thought it'd be a great time for me to share with you how I take just a plain, ordinary, straight grain piece of wood, something we've all got lying around the shop, and turn it into a pen with a little more eye appeal. Here's how I do it. So I've drilled the pen blank and I've epoxied in the brass tube, and in this case we're going to be using the executive pen because I like the length of it. First thing I'm going to do, because we're using wood, I'm going to seal the end grain. So I'm going to take a little bit of ultra thin CA and I'm going to let it soak in, and I'm going to do this to both sides, give it a quick shot of glue dry, and this way the blank ends are sealed, so when I get around to painting this and putting my final glue finish on it and wet sanding it, I don't have moisture wicking in underneath my finish. Alright, so now I'm going to just take a moment and turn this down to size, and then we'll move on. Alright, now that I've got this turned down to size, I'm going to swap out these metal bushings. I don't want to get any metal shavings in this light colored wood and discolor it, so we're going to put Delrin bushings on before we sand it. We'll also use these for the painting and the final finish. So now I'm going to go ahead and sand this down, get it nice and smooth, and seal it before we put our paint on. Alright, now that I've got it sanded down nice and smooth, what I'm going to do is seal this wood. Now I've got two options. I can either use a spray shellac or I can use ultra thin Glue Boost. It doesn't really matter what your preference is. The main thing is you want to seal the wood. This will allow the paint to go on smooth, and it will allow you to wipe the paint off if you make a mistake and want to start over. So now here's the tricky part. We've got to figure out what colors or what pattern we want to put on this pen. So what I like to do is I'll look at fabrics, I'll go online and Google retro patterns, whatever, paint schemes, you name it. There's so many things out there you can look at to get an idea what colors you want to put together and what kind of stripes or patterns you want to do. So in this case, I've chose these colors. These are standard craft acrylic paints, no brand particular. I usually stay away from the cheap generic stuff at the dollar store because I feel like there isn't enough pigment in it. But these are all name brand from Folk Art, Apple Barrel, Deltas. It doesn't matter as long as it's a name brand. So this pen is a commission. They wanted purple and orange. So these are the two primary colors I'm going to be using, but I need to have accents. So I'm going to go with a midnight blue to just give it a little darker tone, and I'm going with this yellow to give it a lighter tone. And this is just in case I need to touch up any of the naked wood to cover up some of the color that I lay down. I've also got a fine tip brush, and you don't have to buy anything particular. I got this off eBay. I think I got 50 of them for like $8. And it's a nice tip, nice fine point to allow me to lay very narrow stripes or broaden them out with a little more paint. I've also got a small cup of water. I'm going to add a little bit of water in cups like this to thin this paint down so that I can lay my stripes down nice and smooth. Alright, I've got my lathe at about 1,000 RPMs, and I'm going to start with my primary colors, which is going to be orange and purple. Just going to put a little bit on the brush. I'm going to come in here and just touch the top of the brush and just kind of move it back and forth. You can roll it if you want, but just kind of push the paint back and forth till you get a nice stripe. If you see that there's some areas that are a little lighter than others, you can go over the top of that, or once it dries you can go over a second time and darken your colors. It just all depends on the look you're going for. The important thing is, don't be consistent with your stripe widths. I like to do just a random stripe width. Come in here and lay something down. I don't want them all the same size, I want them inconsistent. Put something on there and you're not sure you like it, just go over the top of it. Now if I were using maple, I would be stuck with what I've got here. Another alternative, if you get to a point where you feel like maybe you've overdone a few stripes and you want to remove some, take a paint that's very close, and in this case I've got some ivory paint that's very close to the Hollywood. So I'm going to come in here and just widen some of these areas where I want it to be unpainted, so to speak, no color. And it just gives me the opportunity, of course I'm going to have to paint the whole surface now, and not just edges. I'm going to have to fill that whole void over the naked wood. But it may be brighter than the actual wood, so we'll see what kind of look we get with this. That's the fun thing about this. It's all experimentation. There we go. Alright, now I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to put a finish on it. So today's a damp day, and I'm concerned about how quick this paint's going to dry, and I really need to get this pen done. So I've got that 125 watt light bulb I picked up at the farm supply, a little clamp light, and I just position it about 12 inches away from the piece, and then every 15 minutes or so I come over and I just rotate it a quarter turn, and that way the blank's getting warm and it'll dry that paint out real well, and then we'll be able to apply that CA finish over it. If you apply the CA finish before the paint's dry, your CA is going to cloud up, so then you're going to have to start all over again. So we have to make sure it's good and dry before we put our finish on it. I know it seems kind of boring, right? All we're doing is laying down stripes. But it's being inconsistent and random is where I think it gives that pen that character. And it's going to be a one of a kind. So I'm going to let this dry. And after about an hour, I'm going to apply a medium CA finish. I'll be using Glue Boost Medium Consistency, the blue label. It's a fill and finish flexible CA, so it's not going to crack on me. I'm going to put about 5 or 6 coats over the top of this. And then I'm going to come in and level it all off and sand it down nice and smooth. And then I'll wet sand micro mesh and buff it. And then we'll assemble it and see what we get. So here's our finished pen, from plain old wood with no character to an eye-catching pen. And there's other options. We can use white acrylic and put stripes on that. Our pen styles are unlimited. So I hope you enjoyed this video and it gives you some ideas on something you want to try for one of your next pens. Be sure to hit the like button if you did, and subscribe for more videos here with me, John, at Underhill Creations and Casting Solutions. Thanks for watching.